Warm greetings and welcome once again to Slim Talks. As you know, Slim Talks is dedicated to developing excellence in areas of strategy, leadership, innovation, and marketing. So, continuing in our series, we will focus today on how corporates and organizations can build strategic choices based on their imperatives and based on their objectives. The framework that we'll be following is the one which has been popularized by Michael Porter. So, what Michael Porter says is that the basis of competitive advantage is established on the triad of three elements. The first is building in a cost leadership. Second is adopting the approach of differentiation. And the third is by focusing in niche markets that are profitable and attractive, where organizations can leverage their strengths and competitive capability to maximize their profits. So these are the three broad areas that we will discuss today in the context of building our strategic choices. So if you look at this grid, you can see that it is a 3x2 grid. On the y-axis, you have representative markets in which organizations can do business. These can either be large markets or it can be small markets or focus markets. So that's the y-axis for you. Now, on the x-axis, you have your choices or approaches towards your strategies. So there are three broad approaches in basing your strategy, as I mentioned. The first is a cost leadership. Second is a differentiation strategy. And the third is a focused approach. Now, if you look at the grid of cost leadership in large markets, broadly, it gives rise to two types of strategy. These are referred to as type 1 and type 2. A type 1 approach is where you have cost leadership in terms of having the lowest cost in your industry of operations. So you are very efficient in your value chain. You have optimal utilization of all your resources. And by virtue of it, you establish a cost leadership which gives you a distinctive competitive advantage. So that is the type 1 strategy. Examples of organization who dabble in type 1 strategy. Well, if you look at our landscape, we can see the classic example of Reliance Industries, how they clearly establish a cost advantage in their operations. And that is what gives them a competitive advantage over their rivals. So what is it that gets into the cost leadership for a Reliance industry? Firstly, they have huge economics of scale in terms of their quantum and capacity for production of their products and services, as a result of which the cost utilization or the cost allocation per unit is quite low, which reduces the overall costs and helps them to establish a cost leadership in the market. The second is their technology. So they have upgradations in technology in the areas of refineries and petrochemicals that helps them to reduce downtime and therefore increase the efficiency of their operations and reduce cost. Plus, if you look at their supply chain in the area of procurement, production, and distribution, it is well integrated through a strategic approach in terms of maximizing efficiency and reducing wastage to give you a cost advantage. So this is one typical example which I've given of Reliance. And the other examples which also come to mind are the e-commerce giants, like take, for example, an Amazon or a Flipkart, where by virtue of the economics of scale, they offer significant price benefit in terms of the cost leadership. Now here, you have to be very clear about one fundamental aspect. Cost leadership does not mean the lowest price. Cost leadership does not mean price advantage. Cost leadership is simply a cost advantage. It entails an efficiency in the scope of your operations by which you are able to maintain your cost structures and ensure optimal utilization of your resources in terms of building a cost leadership and gaining a cost advantage. So it is all about of lowering your costs and not necessarily lowering your profit or lowering your price. The cost advantage gives you the leeway to have a lower price as compared to competition. But since your cost is low, it helps you to have greater profits as compared to your rivals, thereby being a source of competitive advantage for you. The second type of strategy, again in the same matrix, large markets and cost leadership, is the best value cost leadership strategy. So here again, it's about low cost, but not necessarily the lowest cost. Perhaps you are priced lower as compared to similar products with similar attributes. And by virtue of a lower price, you have a better price value benefit as compared to the specific brands that you are targeting. Take the example of the detergent market, like Unilever's Surf in comparison to Procter & Gamble's Tide. Now, Tide has got a higher price as compared to Unilever Surf. But in terms of their functionality and features, maybe slight benefit to Tide in terms of removal of stubborn stains. But that doesn't mean Surf is not effective in terms of removal of stains. So Surf typically operates in these large markets with a strategy of cost leadership with best value, where it gives a lower price and therefore is helpful to families who manage their expenses on a budget. So these are the type 1 and type 2 strategies. Now let us come to the middle box, which is the differentiation approach. And this could be both in large markets as well as in small markets. So the crux of establishing success in marketing is always a differential. And this differential comes from a functionality or a service that enhances the perceived value to justify the premium for the price and the value that you provide to your consumer. So here you will go to a very discerning class of customers who are typically price insensitive. A classic example in this case is the model of Apple that we have seen, a very innovative organization that is very aggressive in terms of R&D and design, where they use all their resources to come out with latest versions and latest variants over their previous models, and also augmenting the product portfolio to give a better user experience. So in case they have competition with the Samsungs of this world, then they will go one up and come out with newer products. Like take, for example, the AirPods, right? Or the Apple Watches, which really places them one up on their competition. So the technology and the innovation with a sleek design and an enhanced user experience is what clearly differentiates Apple, and its value chain is configured through a set of activities in that direction, which complements its operational effectiveness along with its strategy to make it difficult for a competition to replicate their approach. And when it is difficult for competition to replicate your approach, that is when you have a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, the third grid on the x-axis is focus. Focus means you cater to a relatively small segment of the market, which is a niche, but this niche is attractive enough for you to generate profits. So if you look at type 4 is focus at low cost. So here you cater to a small segment of the market and you have a cost advantage. Take example of the fresh to home delivery service or the big basket. So these are typical e-commerce businesses, online retailing that supplies almost everything, right from seafood to meats to groceries to consumers, goods for the benefit of their consumers. And typically they give the advantage of a lower price on account of their economics of scales and the efficiency and management of their cost structures in the scope of their operations. So that benefit is passed on to their online shoppers in the form of discounts or reduced prices as compared to the brick and mortar stores. And finally, if you look at focus operating in small markets, the strategy here is focus at best value. Now, if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, you will find a lot of the leader companies, they operate in almost every therapeutic segment of the pharmaceutical market. So the business is very well spread across. But yet, there are some organizations who focus only on a very distinctive niche where they have acquired and built up their capabilities in terms of R&D, marketing, and customer relationship to achieve their profits. Like you take the case of a Novo Nordisk in the therapy area of diabetes. Today, it is the leader in the field of diabetes. And again, you have a very focused multinational, which is Galderma, that is focused predominantly in the area of dermatologicals and cosmetics. So they have their capability in terms of an R&D that gives them cutting-edge technology to come out with high-quality products that provides incremental benefits to their end users that justifies the premium that they charge over their competitive set. So friends, I do hope you found this brief discussion on the 5 types of strategy, which is based on the Porter's model, to be very useful. And the next time when you think about your business, you could look about your value chain and see how best you could tweak your value chain in order to get the best value. So remember, cost leadership is the prerogative and the domain of very large organizations that gives you the muscle power to play on cost advantage and keep increasing your customer base. Differentiation can be both for large organizations as well as relatively niche organizations who use a differentiated means to woo their customers. And you can differentiate both with a larger set of customers as well as a smaller set of customers. And if you are a relatively smaller player in the field, then with your kind of resources and the capability that you have built in your domain, it is better for you to operate in a niche segment through a focused low cost and focused best value. Thank you, friends, for joining me and sharing your time with me on this discussion of building a strategic approach. Wish you good luck in the success of your businesses. Thank you very much.